Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hey everybody, welcome to our first preseason podcast. I'm Ozzy.
And I'm Austin.
And welcome back. It's been a long summer. A lot of stuff happened.
Oh, yeah.
And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the draft picks that occurred between running back, wide receiver. I don't think we've got it. Yeah, we do have a tight end in there, and and a couple of quarterbacks. Their ADP in the drafts that they're going in right now, and kind of our thought on that process. So getting right to it, the first one is Marvin Harrison, who has been going 15th overall average draft position at wide receiver 9. Personally, I think that's too early. Completely different if you were in a dynasty league, but in a redraft league, I can't see having Marvin Harrison. Well, first of all, depending upon the format that you're using, we would never have in my 32 team league or 16 team league, we would never have wide receiver 9 picked at spot 15.
Yeah.
Wide receiver 9 would probably be in the 20s to 30 range, because everyone's trying to get 2 running backs. So, I mean, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I'm guessing most of them are not 16-team, 2 running back leagues. Most of them are probably 10 or 12-team leagues. PPR, and they might have multiple, like 3 wide receivers as opposed to 2 like we carry. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Harrison? I mean, I think he's going to be a great player.
Yeah, obviously. I mean,
But this year.
Yeah, for this year, I mean, I'll just put, I got him in Dynasty at 3, which in our league that we're in together you thought was insane. But
yeah, I couldn't believe he lasted.
Teams needed quarterbacks.
Right.
So, and then made the trade and got the Kyler stack. So I'm pretty excited for that going forward. But, I mean, for redraft, a wide receiver 9, pick 15. We were talking last night a little bit, kind of prepping a little bit, I guess, if you would call that.
Doomsday preppers.
Yeah, waiting for our pizza at the restaurant. But, I mean, that's just, there's people out there that just are true, I mean, they're believers, they're calling their shot. Like we were saying, there's at least usually one rookie that finishes top 10 at least,
And it could be him.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, he's a generational talent,
He is.
I mean, with obviously it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
But I want to see a year under his belt before, especially, how's Kyler going to be with him? How's the running game?
Yeah.
Are there other things that are going to detract from him being this, and coming from college and going to the pros, there's a learning curve. It's not, you're not going against some.
He made college look very easy.
He did, but now go up against the best cornerbacks in football. We're not talking about 2 or 3 deep cornerbacks on a college team.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, you've got
Northwestern in week 9.
Right, and you've got 1,000 cornerbacks that play in college, and now you're down to 64 starters. And to think that you're going to be as good against that type of talent, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Wide receiver 9, what do you think? I still think it's a little early.
Yeah, I agree it's early. But again, if you want him, that's the price. That's where he's going. Like I said, there's the players out there, in drafts that they just want him, so they're going to pay up to get him because they believe in him. And like I said, if there's really anybody on this list that we're going to talk about that could break into that top 10,
it would
immediately,
probably be him.
It would be him. And I think his landing spot is great. Kyler's been banged up for a while, came back, played the last quarter of the season or half of the season.
And looked pretty good.
And it's another off season under his belt, training camp start, we got preseason starting tomorrow night. Minus the Hall of Fame game. so he should be fully healthy.
Right.
And coming into it, you got Harrison, you got Trey McBride. I think their offense is going to be pretty good. Could be one of the top few if like I said, if Harrison can translate into the NFL.
Right.
James Conner, I mean, he's never been able to stay fully healthy for a season, but they drafted, another guy we'll talk a little bit more, Trey Benson, who
Yep.
was one of the top 3 prospects for running backs
Right.
this year coming in. So I think their offense is going to be pretty high powered, and I think Harrison's going to probably be the focal point of that.
Yeah,
So
we'll have to see. Next up, 29 draft picks later, or overall picks later, comes Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 24. I personally think that is a great place for him.
Yeah.
I actually might think a little earlier.
yeah.
If Danny Dimes comes back and he can throw the ball.
Yep.
And like you said yesterday, he's a sneaky good runner, and it opens up the offense a little more.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on that offensive line.
Yeah.
If the offensive line is as bad as it's been the last 2, 3, 4 years, then it doesn't matter what quarterback you put in there; they're going to be dead.
Yeah, I like if you're going a 0 RB, say you're full PPR and you're going 0 RB and you get the number 2 pick or something, and you get CeeDee Lamb, at number 2, or Tyreek at between 3 and 4. You get one
Right.
of those true alpha stud receivers, and you just say okay. And then in what round wide receiver 24 is that, like 4?
Well, 44th overall.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, 4th.
Depends
you
on
go-
depends on how what you're talking.
Yeah.
That could be anywhere around the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah, you go first 3 rounds wide receivers and say, you come back second round, grab somebody, and then you got Neighbors if you want to go a little early, or if you're running if your league is crazy, doing 3 wide receivers and a flex spot,
Makes sense to go get him.
I think it would be an awesome, flex. If not, I'd even be okay, I think, in a PPR with him as my number 2 receiver. Just because he's the guy for that offense this season, because there's nobody else. The talent's there. There was even some rumblings of him being better than Marvin Harrison, talent wise, and coming up through at LSU. I think PPR wise he'll be fine. I don't think he's going to post insane yardage or touchdowns, but like I said, PPR wise, I'd be okay. Like I said, if you get one of those top stud receivers and then fill in 2 running backs, or a running back and receiver, and then grab Neighbors again later. I like that.
Yep. Next up, we've got, and this is almost 40 picks later at 83 overall, wide receiver 39, Roman Dunze.
Mm-hmm.
Dunze?
I think. Is it a Dunes? I don't know. Hey, you guys know who we're talking about. Bears rookie.
Yep. One of 2 Bears rookies on here.
Yep.
I like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be a stud somewhere down the road. I don't know if with the other talent they've got there
Yeah.
at wide receiver, how much noise he's going to make.
Yeah, that's why you see him, almost, yeah. You go from pick 44 in Malik Neighbors to pick 83 for Rome. It's a, again, if this was Dynasty, great pick. If you got him in Dynasty, I think in 2 to 3 seasons, you're going to be extremely happy.
Right.
Because really Keenan Allen that they brought in could be a 1-year kind of rental-ish. They just paid DJ Moore a boatload of money, so they're saying to DJ Moore, "You're our guy."
Right.
Going forward.
And that's my hesitation on him is, with Keenan and DJ, how many targets, and you've got Cole Kmet.
Yeah, you got Swift out of the backfield.
Yeah, I
Roschon Johnson still. In the
I just don't know
backfield.
how many receptions he's gonna, how many opportunities he's gonna have.
I think
down the road, like you said.
I think this season,
2 years.
with how good he was at Washington, You know, I mean, because he's always had been talked about as the number 3 receiver in this draft.
Right.
They picked him at what, pick 9?
9.
Yeah. So I mean, they kind of called their shot, wanted him. So I think, this year, I mean, if you want to take, pick 83, I mean, later in the draft, you got everything filled, and maybe he's your second bench, player or whatever, or your
Although
fourth
at wide receiver, if he's truly wide receiver 39,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
and you're
I
playing
think
3, or you're playing 2 and a flex,
Yeah.
or you're playing whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in the top. He's going to be a starter on your team.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes down to Caleb Williams. If
Right.
we'll see how the Bears. I mean, we don't know anything
Right.
yet. We haven't seen any of these guys play together.
Right.
Minus, I mean, Caleb didn't play in the Hall of Fame game, but I'm sure Rome didn't either. But we just don't know what we're gonna get with this new Bears offense, and the new they
The new
bring
regime.
in a new OC and everything, right? Eberflus is still there, but I can't remember if they brought in an OC.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, so I mean, again, we just don't know. But Rome, I mean, yeah, I think he'd be fine as a. I don't know. I think I'm this year out, just because of. I mean, Keenan Allen, even though he's older, was amazing last season.
Right.
You know.
When he's healthy and plays, he's a ball magnet.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you think about it. I mean, you got DJ Moore on the outside. Then you got Keenan, who can play outside,
Or
plays
slot.
really well from the slot,
Very
and
well.
that's kind of the Rome Odunze
Right.
kind of. That's what he was in college,
Yep.
too. So,
agreed.
if he's going to be able to beat out Keenan Allen for, a higher, target share, I don't think so.
Right.
but-
I don't think so either. And that's kind of where I was headed. I was surprised when they signed Keenan Allen. I don't think it's a bad move.
No,
I
they
think
had-
it
they had
gives
so much money to play with.
well, and I think
but-
it gives Rome a year to really learn.
Yeah.
Which is why this, having him ranked fairly highly kind of surprises me a little.
Yeah.
So let's move on to 4 picks later. Jonathan Brooks at 87, running back 28. Supposedly going to miss probably 3 to 4 weeks of the
Yeah.
season with the knee. I like the situation he's in
Yep.
to a point. I think Chuba is still a decent running back, and if Chuba has been doing well,
Yep.
they might hold off on bringing Brooks along too
Back.
quickly.
Yeah, and on one of my dynasty teams, I still have Miles Sanders on my bench, and they just one of the most recent news things was that he's, doubling down and trying to, kind of a comeback from the horrible season he had last year, and he's determined and he's got all this motivation now. But Chuba was eating his lunch last year when it came to production,
Right.
and just not even fantasy value, but in real NFL value,
Right.
So I mean Brooks was I think he was the top rated running back prospect even with the knee.
He was, but that's
they're
more
gonna-
from a dynasty perspective.
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
and football is a dynasty. Our fantasy leagues may or may not be dynasty, but football is a dynasty. They're looking at a year, 2 years, 5 years from now,
Yeah.
where do I think he's going to be the 28th best running back this year? I don't think so. However, he would be a nice guy to have on your bench who is your third back that you can maybe use during the playoffs or whatever, later in the season in the playoffs.
If he takes if it's 3 weeks or 4 weeks, you draft him day after the draft, throw him in your IR, grab somebody off of.
Granted, you have an
waivers.
IR.
Well, if you have an IR, but
Yeah.
and then in 3 or 4 weeks, say it takes them a couple more weeks to really get
Right.
going, and then second half of the season.
And that's
From
probably
all
getting
accounts-
close to the trade deadline.
Yeah.
So you could offload that other starting running back that you've got and possibly ride Brooks and pick up another piece.
Yeah.
With him and with that wide receiver and running back that you might move off for a stud wide receiver.
Yeah.
So moving on, we've got At 88, one pick later, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 41.
Yeah, I mean, good landing spot, Kansas City.
Absolutely.
Rashee Rice, we're still waiting.
8 felonies. I mean,
Yeah. So
I'm not saying that he's going to miss time, but there's a strong likelihood
Yeah.
that he'll miss some time. So a Xavier Worthy might be a stud this year.
And Kansas City, was that the last pick of the first, or did they trade up at the end to
I think
go
they-
and get him? I can't remember.
I can't remember. I want to say they moved up to pick him,
Yeah.
but maybe not.
So yeah, so I mean, they're again saw their guy because obviously they were pick 32,
Right.
because they won the Super Bowl, but they saw their guy and were like, all right, let's get him.
Boo to winning the Super Bowl again.
I mean, out of Texas, right? He was with Adonai Mitchell in Texas, right?
I think so.
So, super fast, decent size. I mean, catching balls from Patrick Mahomes, you can't ask for much better on a team that's projects again their defense to be top tier. So
Yep.
it's not like they're going to have to, which could hurt a little bit for his fantasy stock. They might not have to get into too many shootouts, but I mean. Again,
Well-
Rice, if he misses time, they're going to need somebody else to
Yeah.
step in. They got Hollywood that they brought over.
Yep.
But
And they still have Kelsey. They still have,
yeah, Pacheco.
they've got a good offense.
Yes.
Moving on, 3 picks later, Lad McConkey, wide receiver, number 43. I think that's a good place for him, mainly because of the losses.
He's already rising from that.
Right.
Yes.
Mainly because of the losses to that
Yes.
offense. I mean, you lose Keenan and you lose
Eckler.
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams, yes, but Eckler.
Well,
as
and
yeah.
Eckler as well. But I mean,
You
just from the
replace
wide
Eckler
receivers.
with Gus Edwards. So
Yeah.
but yeah. So I think McConkey he's gonna rise a lot. Like I just did my other dynasty league. We just got done with that draft. He went at the 110.
Yeah.
And I think before he was going like middle of the second for a rookie draft.
Yeah. I mean, he
or
could
even
actually
later,
outperform Aduns.
Yeah, I mean PPR wise, I think he's going to be might not post crazy yardage, but if he gets 130 targets or something like that, and turns that into 800-900 yards and a handful of touchdowns, it's
Right.
going to be pretty good for a rookie.
Yep.
Especially if you can get him a little later. So
Right. Moving on, another wide receiver. Seems to be the wide receiver crew, mainly because they usually do well first year. We've got Keon Coleman at number 99, wide receiver 46. Not a bad place for him either.
no, I mean a great landing spot. You got Diggs shipped out. You got Gabe Davis shipped out. You still got Dalton Kincaid, who I think everybody's assuming he's going to be the leading receiver
Right.
for that team. And you still got James Cook, who's a very good receiving option out of the backfield.
Yep.
But yeah, Keon Coleman, he's kind of, I mean, he's, from what I've been seeing, a lot of people, he's kind of everybody's like ceiling pick. Like he's got a super high ceiling.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you don't know what the floor could be, really bad potentially, but
Right.
his ceiling could be gigantic.
Right.
In
Well,
a Josh
and
Allen
I
offense.
look at the same thing with McConkey.
Yeah.
I mean, both of those could be massive ceilings.
Yeah.
The other ones, I don't think they're ceiling. Well, maybe Xavier Worthy, but I don't think Harrison, Neighbors, or Aduns are necessarily. And don't get me wrong. I mean, it's going to take a great year from those other guys to get past them. But what we're saying is they have a possible landing spot that leaves them so wide open to take over as wide receiver 1. And other than Neighbors, the other, Harrison.
Well, Harrison's ceiling
Yeah.
is already kind of baked into
Right.
what he is. People are, like you said, the wide receiver 9, pick 15. People are drafting him at his potential close to ceiling.
Right.
Because, that 15, people are assuming that the ceiling's even higher, which could be a top 5 guy.
Right.
So
where
it's kind of
Worthy
already baked in.
Right. Where
Yeah.
Worthy, McConkey, and Coleman can all be top 15 to 20 receivers. So yes, they're not going to surpass more than likely Harrison, but for where they're being drafted,
You're not paying
it's
for it.
right. It's
Yeah.
it's a huge potential for
Yep.
those three. Next up, we've got our only tight end on the list, Brock Bowers,
Mm-hmm.
at pick 100, tight end 11.
Yeah, I mean, tight ends are, we were just talking again last night. There's like 5 tight ends this year. Kelsey isn't so much the far and away number one where
I don't even take him number one.
Oh, yeah, but number one tight end.
I don't even take him as the number one tight end.
Yeah. Even like last year or the year, definitely the year before, if you had pick 5, you were staring at Travis Kelsey
Right.
in the first round, and you're like,
I
But
took him at pick 9 one year.
Yeah.
That was the year he didn't have a good year
so, by Travis Kelsey standards,
by my standards
Yeah,
either.
so,
I mean, I think he came in second or third
Yeah.
overall and you want him
Yeah.
like he did this past year.
You want him
I don't
the
think he
field.
did this last year
Because
a couple years ago.
Laporta,
Right.
yeah.
But when you get a 60-point
Yeah.
difference spread between the number 1 and the number 2, that necessitates
yeah.
a high draft pick.
Well, yeah, and he's
Because you can fill in those other spots.
That's a premium position on your team. You got one tight end if
Right.
you want. If you were able to somehow land the old, it comes to mind as the Gronk and Aaron Hernandez,
Yeah.
Duo. That was unheard of ever stacking tight ends, but they were both so insane. But
One
you get
criminally.
Kelsey and you win. Well, yeah. Not
Sorry.
anymore. R.I.P.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want Kelsey to, if you do that, to be so
Yes.
far ahead. But Bowers going to the Raiders. I think they in the draft were just like, well, he's best available. He's still here somehow.
It has to be that reason because
It
you
is.
have Mike
Mayer.
Mayer.
Yeah, who they drafted last year. Who
Right,
was the
and who
top
looked
tight end
good.
price, but yeah.
I didn't understand the draft pick.
Like I
So
said,
they're
I think
still-
they were like, holy, he's still here.
And maybe
He's best available, and they just
maybe
drafted
they
him.
play a lot of 2 tight end sets where you've got Devontae and you've got the other 2 tight ends who both can operate quite well catching
Yeah.
the ball. So
Yeah,
maybe
that
that's
could
their mindset.
I mean, he was far and away the number 1 tight end prospect coming out of college. Obviously, we all, if you watch college football, you know what he was at. He was a monster at Georgia.
Right.
So, I mean, he's, and as a prospect, one of the, top prospects, kind of in the same category, people were putting him with like Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
So, you expect things, but the landing spot isn't the best because you're not sure what you're going to get.
Right.
Sounds like, it's down between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell between who's going to start, so it could be a real mess in that,
Yeah, I'm not. I think that my preference is Minshew.
Yeah.
I think he's a better quarterback. I think that they would still be okay with Minshew.
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
sure about O'Connell.
You look at the other side of the ball, the Raiders defense towards the end of last year was actually very good.
Right.
So, maybe their defense can play well enough to help boost the offense a little bit, and take some pressure off of the offense, which might, everybody's a little more loose. But I think, Bowers, pick 100 if you already have a, whoever. Might as well. If
Yeah.
if all your other needs are met in your draft and he's there, why not?
Yep.
So
Moving on, 1 pick later, 101, Brian Thomas, wide receiver, 47. I like it. I think it's a good place for him.
yeah, I mean, rookie again, one of those guys that for super cheap could have a very nice ceiling or
Right.
even a very nice floor.
Yeah.
He might be between, he might be a 12-point guy every week, but he's going to be hopefully consistent,
Right.
enough too. They still have Christian Kirk. They brought in Gabe Davis, right? Didn't he go to Jacksonville?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I want to say he did. Evan Ingram, of course. ETN.
And you've got a decent quarterback thrown to you.
Yeah. Projects to
what's-
be a good offense.
Yeah,
So,
what's not to like in that environment? The thing I'm seeing is, and in my 30-plus year league of 16 teams, you don't see a lot of rookies drafted.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will be the year that it happens more so.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a lot of these later round guys
Yeah.
where it is, all right, I've got my, say you're 2 wide receiver and a flex. You've got 4, you got your 2 starters and maybe a flex player, and then,
You're gonna need
a
2.
4th, wide
Well, you're going to need a
receiver.
4th and a 5th, probably.
Well, exactly. That's
depending
what I'm saying.
upon
And
when
to
buys
fill
and
out
all.
those 4th and 5th spots, I
Right.
think that's where you're going to see a lot of guys taking these shots on some of these guys, like a Keon Coleman.
Yep.
Brian Thomas as well. I think the later rounds will actually be filled with quite a few rookies.
Yep.
More so than previous
Yep.
years.
So, pick 106, our first QB 12. And no, it is not Caleb Williams. It's Jaden Daniels.
It's the rushing upside. That's
Yeah,
why he's the QB
yeah.
12. I mean, the reason why he's going as the QB 12, people are trying to hopefully capture what they had for those couple games with Anthony Richardson. Where he just scored so many touchdowns on the ground. It's the
Right.
Josh Allen equation,
Yeah.
or effect if you want.
Or Lamar.
Or Lamar,
Yeah.
where it's, he threw for 250 yards and 1 touchdown, but he rushed 12 times for 110 yards and
2
3
more
touchdowns.
touchdowns, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, well, okay.
Yeah, and when you're getting quarterbacks, because in a lot of leagues, and I know some of them give 6 points for passing TDs, the majority that I've ever been in and pay attention to are 4 points for passing.
Yep.
So if you're getting 4 points for a passing TD and you're getting 6 points for a rushing TD from the quarterback position, you don't mind a guy a la Tush Push
Yeah,
scoring
exactly.
the touchdowns.
Yeah.
Because, I sat there with Hurts and I'd go, run it.
Yeah.
No. Don't throw the ball.
Yeah. So, in Washington, they bring in Eckler. They still got McLaurin and Dotson, and they also got Ben Sinnott. I think that's how you pronounce his Sinnott, the tight end, rookie tight end this year.
Stint. Yeah.
I think it's
Sinnott.
Sinnott. I think it's
Yeah.
Sinnott. They
Yeah.
have Zach Ertz, who's ancient but might be okay for a game or two before he gets inevitably hurt again. But that's another team, Washington, that could be on the rise a little bit.
Right.
So
Well,
I think
you can't fall too far from
well, yeah,
near the bottom.
That's true. But I think Jaden Daniels will be a guy that if he's not, like I said, if he isn't like Richardson where he's scoring, say he gets, every week gets a rushing touchdown or runs for a decent amount of yardage and is also throwing well, he'll be out on your waiver wire, and I think could be a very good streaming option
Yeah.
for a handful of weeks this year.
Yeah. The other thing that I see is, we talk about redraft, and this is mainly redraft numbers. Had this been a dynasty,
He would have.
you would have,
pick
yeah,
3.
all of these guys would have been in the top. He's a top 7 or 8 quarterback just on his potential. A lot of these guys, they'd be in completely different places. So don't use this as anything dynasty related because it's not a good indication of what's expected from them out of their entire career.
Yes.
This is a
This season.
2024 numbers
Yep.
ADP thing. Next up at 108, Trey Benson, running back 36.
I like Trey Benson this year. If I can get him at this spot.
Why do you like him here?
Because, well, we were just saying before, James Conner has never had a full healthy season. Granted, James Conner, when he's healthy, is good, but Trey Benson was I think he was the number 2 prospect this year. Coming out. There were some other scouts that liked our guy Marshawn Lloyd better out of USC, but
But he
Trey
went to a
Benson-
bad situation. Well, a potentially bad situation
Yes.
where
If
Josh
Jacobs
is.
pans out, then yes. If
Right.
Jacobs is bad, I think next year Marshawn will be our starter. But that's my opinion on that. But talking Trey Benson,
I'm seeing 2 years, but yeah.
Yeah,
Trey
so
Benson.
I think he's in a good spot where when James Conner does miss, because he most likely
yeah,
will,
yeah.
immediately comes in as a workworkhorse back, and you
But-
can
but
get him
you're
at
not-
106.
But you're not okay. I'm still thinking back to a 2 running back 16 team league where 32 starting running backs are gone.
Well, he probably would go in the like 6th round in your league. In that league, I think.
Oh,
I think he would
probably,
be
and that's
well
he's
gone.
more the handcuff
Well, yeah.
than the. Although I mean, I could see it like you say. I mean, I've drafted running backs speculating that, based on past performance, the guy is going to get injured. The regular starter, and then they get injured, and I've got the guy who takes over. And so in that case, you either need to draft him early enough as the handcuff, or you are going to have someone taking him with the anticipation of Connor getting injured.
Yeah. So
And I think that's
I'm on, like I said, I'm on that side where I think when Connor misses time, which, I mean, if it's week 2, Benson slides in, I think, right away.
It's funny because
the other guys on that roster, like Michael Carter, I mean, horrible. I don't even know who else they have on there, but I mean, Benson, I think drafted immediately was their RB2.
Yeah. And I look at, we talked about a guy that's perennially injured, Mostert.
Yeah. Well, that
And
was
then-
like how many? I mean, you look at after the reason why
I know you've
I
had
hate
him.
CMC,
Oh yeah.
and I'll bring up because to me this is the comparison is Elijah Mitchell. How many guys would draft Elijah Mitchell if they got CMC at number 1, like I did, but. There was the assumption that he was going to get hurt once he went to San Fran because of the previous 2 years in Carolina.
Right.
That Elijah Mitchell was the handcuff guy to have. So Mitchell's ADP would rise because everybody was like, well, CMC's going to get hurt again. And if he does, Elijah Mitchell becomes the number 1
Right.
for one of the best offenses
Well,
in football.
possibly. Who's the other guy? Jordan.
I don't even remember.
I can't remember his name, but they
yes.
played him a lot instead of Elijah.
Well, that's also
Mitchell.
because Mitchell can't stay on the field either. He
Right.
is always hurt. But, and like I said,
Yep.
if Arizona, if they come out and they're this great offense and somehow they're in the hunt, if they want to try and keep Connor healthy, I think it's going to see a little, maybe not fully even, but like a 60-40 Connor to Benson
Yep.
being out there. So
Yep.
I think he'll be, I mean, I think it'd be a very nice bench piece.
Yep.
If not
eventual
starter.
Absolutely. I mean, he could definitely, and I, we talk about it on any given weekend. Anybody can get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Jets spent how much draft capital and money
To get
on
4
Aaron
plays.
Rodgers to get 4 snaps out of him.
Yep.
So I mean, the reality
5
is,
if you count the Achilles. 5 snaps if you count the Achilles.
Oh, was that on the 5th?
Oh, I'm saying that was the 5th.
I got it. So, moving on, you've got at 112 the darling of the draft in more ways than one. QB 15, Caleb Williams. Sorry.
Was that a suck it Phil or
No. That was no. I truly hope that he can do well, and according to my buddy Phil, the Bears don't ruin him because he feels that they've ruined quarterbacks. And I'm not. I can't tell whether or not they've ruined quarterbacks, but they've rarely had a good one. So it's possible that now. I probably would have, like I've said, I would have kept Fields, and I would have gone Marvin Harrison, and but here's the thing, I would almost draft Caleb Williams ahead of QB 15 on the immense potential that this guy has, just based on the 3 wide receivers he's got.
well,
No other reason.
Well, that Cole Kmet can be
Right.
a very good player. Swift, if
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, because he looked until the whole Eagles team started to break down.
Right.
In the second half of the season, Swift looked like the best running back in the right
Yeah.
up there with CMC. He was
Right.
but granted he had the holes he was running through were 5 feet wide. So
Right.
they were getting movement, but this offense, and then they've invested in the O line, and
Which they
everything,
could afford
too.
to do because they had money.
So much money,
Right.
That this, I mean, I would always kind of roll my eyes when you hear it, but you look at it, and this is one of the best landing spots for a rookie quarterback,
Absolutely.
let alone the top rookie quarterback. That there were many teams, I think, waiting on this guy for at least the last 2 seasons
Right.
of his college career.
Right.
So, to do what the Bears did, I think they've done a great job so far. We'll just see if it translates.
Agreed. And I mean, you're exactly right. To walk into 2 excellent wide receivers and an excellent rookie wide receiver to go with the other tools that you've got there. If he doesn't succeed, one of 2 things: he wasn't that good, or the Bears messed him up already. And I can't see that happening. So, like I said, I'm kind of surprised that he's still there at QB 15.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think
I mean, in a 16-team league,
Oh, yeah.
that means he's one of the top starters on a team.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a 10-team league where he's a backup.
Yeah.
I'm talking in my 16-team league, if I can get him at QB 15, I would definitely take a flyer,
Yeah, for sure.
even with some of his growing pains.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, and
You just can't have 100 interceptions.
yeah, that's true.
But
Kind
I
of tough though when you look into the middle of the field and Keenan Allen's just standing there wide open.
Right.
It seems to happen all the time.
Right.
But yes, I hear what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, even then, I mean, it's tough in your draft because you never know how your team's going to really pan out. With everybody else picking and all these guys that you're like, ooh, I'd like to have this guy, and then pick before you, he's gone, so you got to pivot. But
boy, that never happens to me.
yeah. Still salty about that JSN. Well, I guess not because he ended up getting Stroud. So.
I was salty at the time, but I mean, it is one of those things that I've got my eye on a guy, and not in real life. I've got my eye on a guy, and I'm sitting there going, okay, he's gonna fall to. I'll take blah blah blah, and you're like, oh,
Yep.
now what am I gonna do?
Yeah, so
I mean, a lot of times I'll have a couple of picks ready. Where you know where to pivot, but then there are ones that you're
Out of
just
the blue,
you're
and you're
heartbroken.
like, oh, man.
Yeah, you're heartbroken.
Yeah. You're like, this
So-
is this guy's third quarterback. What is he doing?
Oh yeah, that happens too. So
But yes, again, I had taken him a little early just on the potential of what could be. If you take Caleb at this spot and you just punt, and I mean, like, even now, like, Stafford and Goff are still going around here, if not later sometimes as well. Like, people are on, obviously the premium is, Mahomes and Lamar
Well-
and Josh Allen and Hurts and everybody.
for the last
And-
two years or so, I've been taking Brock Purdy in the 14th round.
Exactly. I mean, and yeah.
Now, Brock Purdy will not be making
No.
it to the 14th round this year.
But, like this year, like I said, I threw out Goff. You look at their opening schedule, and they're all indoors, which Goff is unbelievable when he's indoors. Their opening schedule is crazy good. Goff could be the QB1 potentially at week 5.
Yep.
And then say, here comes Caleb Williams, and say something happens to Goff, and you got Williams on your bench. Or Goff continues to tear it up, and you got a really nice trade piece here.
Right. Right.
I mean, so
Yep.
the potential there, I think he's going to start creeping up a little bit in the ADP, but I think people are still a little wary because it is Chicago.
Well, and I mean, there are a lot of good quarterbacks out there. There really are. I mean, you think about it. To be a top 15 quarterback as a rookie, I mean, that will be very impressive if he pulls that off. I'm not saying he's doing it solely on his skill set, like a lot of quarterbacks do. I mean, you look at a guy like Jordan Love. Jordan Love is in that situation. I can only imagine what kind of numbers he might put up. Whereas he doesn't have a true number 1, number 2, number 3 like that.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of guys that are just, they're good.
Interchangeable, yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of teams that are like that. And which is why I say Caleb Williams could just be, I mean, you talk about ceiling for players. His ceiling is massive.
Yeah.
So I like the potential.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I like the potential. I don't. It may turn into nothing.
Yeah.
He may get hurt. He may be horrible. No one knows.
Yeah.
So, moving on to our last but not least of our list is Blake Corum at 117, running back 40.
I mean, he's the handcuff to Kyron.
Right.
Kyron goes down at all, and Corum.
And he's been injured to start with. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
and Corum is kind of like Kyron Williams, anyways, as a running back. So I mean, and we, at Michigan was great. I mean, I like Blake Corum. The landing spot wasn't. I think he could have went elsewhere, and he would have been up with Brooks and all those guys.
agreed. But
I
it's a question of, I mean, it may turn into, well, this year I agree.
Yeah.
In the next 2 to 3 years, it could be a completely different story because Kyron Williams may or may not be still their starting running back.
Yeah, and if Kyron, he's a little banged up right now, I believe,
Right.
but if he comes out of preseason and he's healthy and stays healthy and does what he did last year, which was put up a very, very good season, Corum, it could be next year because McVay does kind of, he likes a workhorse kind of guy who's
Right.
out there all the time. And you didn't, when Kyron was fully healthy, you didn't see a whole lot of other running backs out there.
Right.
You didn't see Ronnie Rivers out there or anything like that. So,
Who?
but Ronnie Rivers, I think that was one of their backups.
Yeah.
But, so.
Wasn't Henderson there too for a while?
Well, Henderson was their guy. I think it was like 2 years ago now, and was actually decent when he was healthy in the starter. It was actually pretty good. I traded for him the 1 year, and he helped me push into playoffs. But then he was crap in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, but I think Corum again, super late, or if you're the Kyron manager and he's there late,
Right. I think
handcuff him, take him.
that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If he's available later. In our league, 1632, he may be 6th, 7th round again.
Yeah.
Just because we are so, obviously you have to have running backs. So
it's a premium in that league.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see. That's all we've got for this week. We'll be putting together a new episode fairly soon. Haven't decided what we're going to talk about yet, but we'll put it out there. And
So much nicer in season when the content that we talk about is
right,
already made.
it drives you.
Yes.
But we do have some ideas on. We'll talk about some drafting and some topics that are obviously of importance to new and old. I mean, like I've had conversations with people. Oh, you run a fantasy podcast. Who should I draft first? And or I'll say to the person, someone always asks me, who should I draft first? What's your format?
What pick are you?
But let's say, outside of the obvious, although CMC in a one running back, 10 team, wide receiver heavy league, CMC may not be the number one pick.
Probably CD Lamb or Tyreek Hill.
Right.
Oh.
So, it
depends.
It depends on what you're doing. So, a lot of, and we did an episode last year that we talked about, or maybe 2 years ago.
It might have been 2 years ago.
And we
now.
talked about the format that you're in playing into what you're doing. You really have to study it for the format that you're in. But like I said, we'll talk about that in a show within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that's all we've got for this week. I am Ozzy.
And I'm Austin.
Have a great week.